All right, good morning. Can we actually go back one slide to that? Awesome. It's 11:04. We're going to give it one more minute and kick off at 11:05. While we're waiting for other folks to join us, we invite you to update your display name if you haven't already done so. Hovering over your video square, top right corner, those three dots, you could right click and update your first name, last initial, comma, your LEA name. We also would like to remind everyone, please keep yourselves on mute just to decrease that background noise that we have. There will definitely be some opportunity to unmute, ask some questions here later throughout, our time today. But if we could all default to that mute, that would be wonderful. Thank you. All right, team, it's 11:05. How we feeling? Throughout our presentation today, so welcome. My name is Ashley Costello. I am the School Safety Center Specialist here at the Utah State Board of Education. And this is an LEA School Safety and Security Director information session. So a big umbrella information session for you all today. We might have some other LEA admin in the room. I know folks were also interested in joining to hear the updates that we have regarding school safety. So if you're on a risk manager team or another LEA admin position, thank you so much for joining us. As a quick reminder, this session is not for school safety and security specialists. So if you are a school safety and security specialist and you have joined us today, feel free to jump off, have your time back. This is has a more intended audience for those LEA school safety and security directors. Here is our agenda today. So again, like I said, a big high level overview of a lot of things school safety related. So we'll talk about the school safety and security specialist training program. We know that you as security directors oversee those folks. So we do want to give you some insight on what that program looks like for them. We'll talk about the school safety and security specialist Canvas course. We'll give you a demo of that as well. The school safety and security specialist stipend grant program, the school safety and support grant updates. That is a grant that was released earlier this month, and Rhett will give you some updates on what that program looks like and some timelines there. We will chat about the school safety needs assessment for next year. So FY26, what that school safety needs assessment looks like, what the FY25 application for alternatives updates are, and what you can expect moving forward next school year. We have some professional training opportunities that we want you to be aware of, and then some resources as well on our School Safety Center webpage and some other things that we've gathered for you. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So any questions that you have throughout today, please use that Q&A feature. Melissa will be responding and facilitating that question and answer piece. So please put any questions in that Q&A feature and not the chat. That allows us to keep them in their own, separate space. We can keep track of them and make sure all questions are getting answered. So to kick us off, the School Safety and Security Specialist Training Program. Each school has designated a school safety and security specialist, and those folks have, an outline of tasks and duties to complete. And one of those is attending the Utah State Board of Education trainings that we, the School Safety Center, put on for those folks. So they have three this school year. You could see our first one was last semester, so it was back in October, and that was an onboarding training. And we had information about the school safety needs assessment process and the school safety needs assessment summary form process. So that was the first one that was a required mandatory training. And then we have two more this semester. Training number two is actually next Wednesday, January 22nd, and that's later in the afternoon, 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. And that will be about mental health approach to school safety. And then our third and final training that is mandatory for them is going to be Wednesday, April 23rd, that same time, 2:30 to 3:30, and that will be updates from the 2025 legislative session. So attendance at these three trainings that I just talked about, so the one in October, the one next week, the one in April, those are mandatory trainings and they can attend live or they can watch the recordings. Um, and those recordings are listed either on our website and also in the Canvas course. So if they can't attend live, they can watch the recordings. And then there are some formative assessments and follow up tasks that we ask them to complete as well in order to mark their attendance as completed. So those are the three ones that are absolutely necessary. However, attendance at all other trainings and town halls offered by us, the School Safety Center, are optional. However, they are highly encouraged. So we did want to give you a high level overview of what the Canvas course looks like for school safety and security specialists. A few of you have reached out as LEA directors and asked to be enrolled in this course, and we totally understand. You have your specialists coming to you, asking questions, asking for troubleshooting support and issues. However, when reaching out and asking to be enrolled, we are keeping the Canvas course to school safety and security specialists specifically only at this time. As we learn about Canvas a little bit more, and after this first year, we'll reassess and maybe that will change in the future. But please be aware that this year we are keeping enrollment only for the school safety and security specialists. However, we do want to give you some oversight and some insight to see what it looks like. So here are some screenshots here. So when your folks are enrolled in that Canvas course and they log into that Canvas course, this is the main page that they see. It's just a brief welcome. It asks them, it tells them what their duties are, and the first section of bullet points are things that we expect of them, and then some additional duties, and then how to reach out to us and things as such. On the left hand side, you'll see there's modules, assignments, announcements, discussions, grades, pages, files, quizzes, a lot of navigation areas that they could use. And then you'll see on the right-hand side, maybe some to-dos. Maybe they have a formative assessment or a quiz that's due here soon. So for example, they do have some follow-up tasks for that first training that we had in October, and those are due by the second training, which is next week. So they might have those on their to-do list, or they might have already completed those. So if you move to the next slide, the next screenshot for you all is going to be their main modules course. And these are some modules that they'll see within their Canvas course. So for example, that first one at the top is FY25 recordings. All of the recordings that we have, you can see the 9/11 school safety town hall, optional attendance. However, the recording is there if they were interested in viewing it. The 1016 training number one, that is there in case they couldn't attend live. They could go back to Canvas, they could find that recording, and then they could do their follow-up tasks. You'll notice our second town hall is there, and then any other future town halls or professional development recordings that the School Safety Center has, we'll put those in the FY25 recordings module. So that's what an expanded module looks like. You'll notice the next one is resources. That one is zipped up. However, a bunch of things underneath that of the school safety playbook as the PDF version, the emergency preparedness and response planning guide is in there, some hoax threats infographics for parents and students and teachers, an abundance of resources for them lives in the Canvas course. And then you'll see that last module that's expanded is training number one, onboarding and school safety needs assessment webinar. They will have a training module for each training. So we'll have training number one, training number two, training number three. And in each training module, it will be the same. There's a viewing confirmation. So they'll have to click in there, say, I either watched the recording or I attended live. They hit yes, it unlocks their exit ticket. An exit ticket, I think in education, we're all very familiar with. It's a simple form of assessment. What are the three top things we wanted them to learn in that training? It's a quick 3 to 5 question Canvas quiz, and we ask them to score at least a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 if they're looking for extra minus credit on that exit ticket. And when they get that 4 out of 5 or when they get that 5 out of 5, it will unlock that third part, which you can see is grayed out here because it hasn't been completed yet. It's a discussion. So this one is optional. They just have to view the discussion. It has a question just to get all the specialists talking about the same topic. Again, answering and replying is optional. However, viewing that discussion question is part of the mandatory piece of that training module. And then you'll notice there on the right hand side where it says complete all items, they'll have to complete items training number one, the viewing confirmation, the exit ticket, and the discussion just to view it to complete that module. Once that module number one is completed, the one for training number two will become unlocked and available. Once training number two is completed, then training number three will become unlocked and available. And this is a way for us to keep track that specialists are doing and completing the tasks that are asked of them and mandatory per legislation. This is also a way for you as LEA directors and also possibly school principals to ensure that those folks are coming to these trainings and doing the follow-up tasks as required and necessary. So shifting into a good segue to the stipend grant. So now in Utah grants, we have the school safety and security specialist stipend grant. All stipend allocations have been updated in Utah grants. So the totals of the total amount of stipend allocations are updated. If you had originally applied and your budget got revised because you received a few extra stipends or you received a few less stipends and there's a budget revision there, please review that Utah grants application. If it's still pending, I advise you to go in, review it, make sure the budget revision is up to date and accurate, and possibly either submit a budget revision or reapply for the grant. So considering all of the allocations are up to date and applications are almost up to date and approved, we can start talking about what that reimbursement request looks like. So reimbursement requests are now being accepted. So you can log into Utah Grants and you can begin to request reimbursements for these $3,000 stipends for your specialist. They're doing the work, they have earned it. We want to get their deserved money into their hands. So if you go into Utah Grants, please use the FY25 invoice reimbursement template, which is a screenshot there to the right, and attach as an Excel document. You can find this template in the Utah Grants application under that attachment section. It's also linked out on our website as well. So the template will ask you to list each school name in alphabetical order, the name of the specialist, and then it will ask you to break down that stipend if your LEA has chosen to break down that stipend for the specialist. So if that specialist is getting all $3,000 directly to them, zero withheld for benefits, total stipend $3,000. Or maybe your LEA has decided to give $2,000 directly to the specialist, withholding $1,000 for benefits, that total stipend still being $3,000. So please complete that template, attach it as an Excel document when you submit your reimbursement requests. We do want to remind you that stipends cannot be split between multiple individuals, and it's one stipend per approved school. Now, there is that caveat if there has been an update in personnel in your specialist, maybe due to role shifts or switching from one building to the other, and you have submitted an update in personnel form with us, we do understand how that stipend could be split. However, default stipends cannot be split between multiple individuals. Last year, some LEAs have reached out to us asking for documentation. Did my specialist attend these meetings? Do you have attendance records of the trainings that they were supposed to go to? Can you send them to me? Because I want to make sure they're doing the tasks I'm expecting of them before they receive the stipend. That is a great question. That is another reason why that Canvas course was created. Once each specialist finishes training number one module, training number two module, training number three module, they will unlock a feedback module, a quick Google form of a feedback question. Once they submit that, they will automatically receive a certificate of completion as a PDF. And that completion certificate can be sent to a school principal or a building principal or you as an LEA director as documentation of them completing their duties in order for you to request a reimbursement. House Bill 335 from the 2024 legislative session was passed, and it does provide some updates on state grant process amendments. For example, an administering agency, us at the Utah State Board of Education, may not disperse all grant funds in a single payment unless the agency makes the single payment after the grant recipient satisfies the performance obligations. So, for example, in Utah grants, I'm the main primary reviewer of reimbursement requests for the stipend grant. I do have a handful of reimbursement requests pending asking for the full $3,000 already to be reimbursed to LEAs. Unfortunately, due to the updates in House Bill 335, I will be sending those reimbursement requests back to each LEA because under this first letter we are not able to provide full reimbursements until after the performance obligations have been met. And since our third training for specialists isn't until April, we will not be able to reimburse any full single payment reimbursements until after April 23rd of 2025. However, item 2 says make a grant's final disbursement before the grant recipient delivers the report. Some LEAs have asked for half of the stipend, have asked for $1,500 because half of it goes to the specialists for semester 1 and the other half goes to semester 2. Those partial reimbursements, we can approve those reimbursements to get approved and sent back to you. Keep in mind that those final payments cannot be approved until after that April 22nd date. So again, if you're an LEA who has already submitted for the full payment of the $3,000 stipends in Utah grants for reimbursement requests, I will be sending those back due to House Bill 335.
All right. Hello, everybody. Rhett Larson, School Safety Center Coordinator for the Utah State Board of Education. We're going to shift gears just a little bit and talk about the School Safety and Support Grant. So this is a competitive grant opportunity to enhance the physical safety and security of schools in Utah, including the minimum safety and security standards listed there in Utah Code Section 53-22-102. Eligibility: schools must meet specific criteria to be eligible for the grant, including having a designated school safety and security specialist and conducting a school safety needs assessment with the county security chief or designee between May 1st and December 31st of 2024. So again, they have to have a school safety and security specialist to be eligible and have conducted that school safety needs assessment with the county security chief or their designee between May 1st and December 31st of 2024. We are so pleased with the school safety needs assessment. We had 100% completion at the end of December, and kudos to all of you in helping support that initiative. The application process involves completing a Qualtrics form to provide detailed information about each school's school safety needs and completing the funds request in the Utah grant. So anyone who gets that Qualtrics link can actually fill out that portion of the application. We've had questions come in from folks asking how to do that if they don't have a Qualtrics account. But if you have that link, you can help support filling out that information at the LEA level, where you will need school information, school data to help you fill out that grant application, that Qualtrics form. All right. Funding priorities. LEAs prioritize their funding requests. There's an opportunity for you to do that in the Qualtrics forum for you to identify and share with us what are your priorities. Approval and notification. The grant applications are reviewed and schools are notified of their approval status. Just so you are all aware, we do work with the grant subcommittee underneath the task force. And so you please pay attention to the rubric and follow the application closely. Please read the instructions there. And then again, we will coordinate with the grant subcommittee underneath the task force on what is being requested by LEAs. They will help review and determine what items can be approved and paid for. Resources and support in our communication as well as on our website. We've provided additional support. There's a link there. We've also sent these out, but please utilize those resources as they will support you. We have also created a webinar that will happen next week on Tuesday, January 21st from 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning, where we will answer common questions and provide some additional support if needed in filling out that school safety and support grant. You are also able to reach out to us through our shared inbox with any questions that you might have. Just please be aware that the application will close at 5 o'clock on Friday, January 31st. We understand that this is a short window of being able to apply for this grant. However, this data will be critical in sharing with policymakers the need statewide, the funding need to be able to implement the school safety requirements. So please help us in ensuring that we can get the data that we need through filling out the application for this grant.
All right, thank you, Rhett. I am Lieutenant Jeremy Barnes with the Division of State Security through the Utah Department of Public Safety, as well as the School Safety Liaison with the School Safety Center. I just wanted to take a minute and, as we kind of have alluded to, thank you for all of your efforts in obtaining 100% compliance for the needs assessment. This is the first year that we've done this. Obviously, we were learning things, learning processes as we went, but it has been, in my mind, the 100% compliance is a huge feat, and we should all be proud of ourselves on that. I love seeing all of the individuals that are here on this. I know a lot of you by name, by person. I also want to take a moment and apologize for if you've emailed me in the last few days about the school safety support grant, and I have not been able to get back to you. I was out of town with the military, and then I was in mandatory department in service the last couple days. So I am taking a little bit getting through the emails. If you need me and you have my cell phone number, please reach out to me. Also work through your regional training specialists, which hopefully all of you have been meeting your regional training specialists from my office. Please utilize them, take advantage of their knowledge, and understand that they have a direct link to myself as well as the state security chief, Matt Pennington. So I just wanted to get a little bit of that out of the way. Again, I appreciate all of your involvement, continued collaboration with every one of you. You are the experts in the field. The relationships that we've been cultivating with you are extremely valuable and important to us. So we want to continue doing that moving forward. As we talk about the Utah School Safety Needs Assessments for this upcoming year, I do want to point out that we are about ready to start the legislative session. So all of the information that we discuss here today is subject to change. We don't anticipate that there will be huge changes from what HB 84 has already done, but HB 40, the first draft of it is available online through the legislative website, and we can anticipate that there will be some modifications moving forward. We also have the administrative rule available, and that includes information regarding the building recommendations, the standards, the timelines of implementation, things like that that have been very useful. There are some changes that will administratively be going through with those rules, and so we want to just let everyone know they are not while they have been proposed, there will be some modifications happening there as well based upon the public comment that we did receive. So, getting into the needs assessment, uh, based upon the Utah statute, each school is required to conduct a school safety needs assessment and report the results of those needs assessments to the state security chief as well as the school safety center. The results will be used to award grants of ongoing funds that we may or may not receive through the legislative session. But that would be the intent, using those needs assessments to identify where your gaps are, identify those strategic plans on how to implement funding and different resources that you could be given with those grants moving forward. We had the requirement for December 31st of 2024 to get those first needs assessments in. However, moving forward each year after this, October 15th of each calendar year will be when those needs assessments will be needing to be submitted. One thing I do want to add is there is currently a work group between the Department of Public Safety and the Utah State Board of Education in trying to get our Utah specific needs assessments created and uploaded, created for use of all the LEAs and users in the field. So this year we used a variety of different platforms with RIMS, with PASS, with CISA, and next year it is our goal to be able to release a Utah specific needs assessment that everyone can use, and hopefully it will be a little bit more user friendly than having to take a third party platform and integrate it with the Qualtrics survey for USBE. So that is our intent. Couple things on the application for alternatives. LEAs may apply to the state security chief for alternatives based upon the following considerations. This would include population size, staffing needs or capacity, geographic location, or a general demonstration of need for an alternative. I will tell all of you, Chief Pennington and I have spent a great amount of time over the holiday break, and we continue to spend our free time going through the applications for alternatives that were submitted this year. There has been the information that was submitted to us. There have been a lot of applications where the general demonstration of need for an alternative was expressed. We are going through each application, looking at it independently to see whether or not that's going to be approved or denied. I'm hoping to let all of the individuals or the LEAs, the individual schools or the LEAs that submitted applications for alternatives. We're hoping to get those letters sent out within the next few weeks to let all of you know where you're at on things. But moving forward, we're going to adhere to kind of the same considerations. If you have an articulable need of why it should be, your school should be considered for an alternative, the biggest thing is please propose something. If you do not propose anything, we have nothing to go off of. We cannot create an alternative for you because we just don't know what your specific need is. We don't know the specific concerns of your area, the demographics. And so please give us something to consider when you're applying for these alternatives. Some of the predetermined exceptions that moving forward, you won't even have to apply for an alternative because it's already a predetermined exception in statute. The enrollment size fewer than 350 would allow the same individual to serve in more than one role. And just I can't say that it will pass, but I know that the proposed language as of right now is to kind of have that enrollment size get away, where if you can have a school safety and security specialist serve in the role of an armed guardian, that could be considered. And I know that is conversation that the task force has had, and it may be considered for ongoing legislation moving forward. Also, the enrollment fewer than 100, a school employee may be a teacher or a principal. So in these situations, and in a lot of the applications that we have received, we have seen that despite the enrollment fewer than 100, if there's, for example, an enrollment over 350, we have seen some applications for alternatives where a teacher fulfills the role of the guardian or a principal fulfills the role of the guardian based upon the general demonstration of need for that school. And we've been taking those under consideration and under advisement for those applications for alternatives. So it is one of those things. If you need to get creative, please consider doing that when you're completing these applications for alternatives. But understand those are the predetermined exceptions that are in statute right now, and then we'll see what the legislation has for us moving forward.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeremy. So to put some more training opportunities on your radar and on your calendar, we have some comprehensive school threat assessment guidelines, so some CSTAG training coming up in person, standard response protocol, SRP from the I Love You Guys Foundation, and then we're also hosting a prepare workshop 1 in person this semester as well. So CSTAG is going to be a 3-day training event. However, January 29th is the full day workshop in person. So that is a 1-day, 8 to 4 training to come and learn about CSTAG and that approach for behavioral threat assessment. And then the following days, January 30th and the 31st, are the train the coach portion. So if you're interested in having someone from your LEA become a trainer in CSTAG so they can then take that information back and train others in your school district or in your LEA, that is a really good bonus training as well for them to come and attend. That will be all day January 30th and then the first half of the day on Friday, January 31st. SRP, SRM from the I Love You Guys Foundation, a few opportunities here. February 10th and March 10th are actually the same exact training. So they are both a virtual half-day SRP, SRM workshop. Monday, February 10th is from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., while Monday, March 10th is 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. So a few different options. Again, the exact same training for those. And then later that month, March 20th and the 21st, is a 2-day SRP SRM unification exercise in person. So that first day is going to be all about SRP SRM. So those virtual days are not a prerequisite at all. It's actually the same information. It goes a little bit deeper. So if you have no background yet in SRP or SRM, coming to that 2-day reunification exercise, it kind of gives you everything in one chunk. So that first day, like I said, it's all about SRP, SRM. That second day, all day is that reunification exercise. And that training for March 20th and 21st is capped at 104 participants. Lastly, prepare. We have workshop 1, a really good overview of the incident command system, so ICS, and also unified command. And that is Tuesday, March 25th. That's going to be in person. And again, only workshop 1. We will have communication going out about all of these trainings. I believe the CSTAG training is already full. We are keeping a wait list. However, be on the lookout for communication and registration links for the SRP and the prepares.
And if you have any questions or if you have additional concerns, you can also use these resources that we have shared. There's the Utah School Safety Playbook, the Emergency Preparedness Planning Manual, a guide for Utah Public Schools, and the Utah School Safety Center webpage, our training request portal through USB, and the I Love You Guys Foundation. And I'll turn it over back to the Q&A.
Okay, let's get into some questions. Let's start, Ashley. I have a couple for you about the training. The first one they're asking is they took the CSTAG training a while ago, and they're wondering if it is still required. Do you want to just explain a little bit like what's required training versus not?
Yes, so each school needs to have some sort of behavioral threat assessment model or approach or guidelines to be conducting those threat assessments in each school within the LEA. That's one of the places for the school safety and security specialist is to be on that multidisciplinary team conducting those threat assessments. The Utah State Board of Education sees CSTAG as the model policy and best practices for behavioral threat assessment approach. So we are offering that CSTAG training. If you have already been trained in CSTAG, the information is still relatively similar. Yes, there have been some updates maybe to the forms or the data, things like that. However, we are not requiring any sort of retraining after so many amount of years. I think that's something, Rhett, you can fill in the gap here. I think that's something Dr. Dewey Cornell is grappling with right now on what that recertification piece will look like.
Yes, I'll just hop in here really quick. Thank you, Ashley. So with the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines by Dr. Dewey Cornell, it has received significant updates over the last couple of months, and they are looking at what a recertification training would look like in the future. However, if you would like to gain the knowledge and training in the latest updates, you are welcome to attend another workshop. I know that our team, the School Safety Center, will be doing that in the future just to stay current on relevant training by Dr. Dewey Cornell in the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines. Melissa, they're not able to hear you for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We have a question based back on the grants. They have a question. What is the basis of the competitive aspect of the grant?
Yeah, thank you. I'll go ahead and cover this. So last
you.
year, this last legislative session, there was funding that was allocated 50 million towards targeted grants for the school safety requirements. And because there's limited funding for that, it does, cause us to do a competitive grant. But also, as you apply for this grant, that data again will go back to the grant subcommittee, and they will look at the items that are being requested by LEAs, and they will determine, hey, out of this pot of funds, we will pay for X, Y, and Z, and then we will communicate with you if you've been awarded and how much you have been awarded and what that can be applied towards. So that's why it's a competitive grant, because there's limited funds on the one-time funding that was allocated in last year's legislation for these school safety requirements. Good question. I'm not sure, Melissa, you keep going in and out. We might have to double click each time. Zoom is giving us fits today. It's still not working.
Rhett, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I can jump in here. Lieutenant Barnes, if you're still available, where can we find a list of regional training officers so folks know who they should reach out to?
That will be on the Division of State Security website. I can attach the link to the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you. Scott, where do we have the results from our psych eval fit to carry sent? Also, do we need to report our SO Guardian training to anyone? So I guess the first one's for you, Scott. The second one is Lieutenant Barnes.
Well, I'd say both of them would be the same answer, and that is in their employee file. I would just suggest that anybody who's going to be a guardian, you have on file their concealed weapons permit that they're supposed to have. There's their mental health screening results, not necessarily the screening themselves, but just whether they've taken it, whether it's pass or fail, and also with their passing the Guardian training program, which includes the firearms component. That is something that you'll want to have in an employee file and be able to speak to as part of their requirements.
I
Awesome.
think I
Thank
need
you,
a I need to
Lieutenant.
put an ad on that as well. The county security chiefs are responsible for getting that information, reporting it to the state security chief. So the county security chief will have all of that information when those trainings are taking place and what they have to do to report the information that's required for those guardians.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, in in the grant, Rhett, this is for you, I believe, and possibly Lieutenant Barnes. There's an item for SRO services. Yes, I do believe that's listed in House Bill 84 that funds can be used for SRO services. And LEA is asking, can we use that same line to request funding for support of a school security officer that is not an SRO?
We want you to write for all items that you feel you need to pull off these school safety requirements. Um, Part of the SRO services would be would need to stay within that pocket of SRO services or training opportunities. And Jeremy can highlight some of those opportunities for SRO training, such as NASRO. But with some of these other components, we do want you to write for, and that's why there's another category in there, all areas of need that you need to support the school safety requirements. So that way we can inform policymakers of all the needs statewide.
Yeah, so the school resource officer training component of that would include items like what Rhett said, with NASRA training opportunities, other school resource officer specific trainings that you would like to see. However, I believe the personnel component is specifically geared for school resource officers and would not be able to facilitate that ongoing funds with school security officers.
Awesome. Thank you. Lieutenant Barnes, can the alternative applications be updated? We heard last weekend that allowing a principal or teacher could be a guardian. We didn't know that was even a possibility for consideration.
Thank you, Ashley, for that. No, they cannot be updated. However, so here's how things are kind of gonna shake out. Um, we will be those schools that applied for alternatives. We will be going through each one of those applications for alternatives and determining whether or not we are going to approve or deny those applications. Once those applications are denied, so if we approve the application, then that application will be approved through school year 25-26. If we deny the application, we are advising LEAs that they need to have a plan in place. That we're denying the application, but they need to have a plan in place by the time school year 25-26 comes on board. And so when we send out those letters stating that the application for alternatives was denied, then we would encourage the local education agencies, school safety and security directors, school safety and security specialists, as well as the county security chief, work very closely with the regional representative from our office. And I did put the organizational chart there in the chat. But work very closely with those individuals. They will be checking in to see what those plans are moving forward. And if that is your plan to where, for example, if you have 400 students enrolled, and your guardian is going to be a teacher, that is your plan, then we would look at how to help with that process, or basically not redo the application for alternatives, but take that under consideration for what your strategic plan is moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lieutenant Barnes, do we have any information on the 28 hours needed for the Guardian program? I'm going to link that to another question that is asking and confirming. So county security chiefs reach out and schedule the Guardian training with LEAs, or do LEAs need to contact county security chiefs?
So depending upon the area, it's going to be a combination of both. And honestly, with collaboration from individuals, our regional training specialists from my office. So depending upon where the situation lies. So I do know that there are some counties that have already conducted their guardian training programs, or at least their first. But there are some that haven't even determined when that is going to happen. We have a situation where Chief Pennington has approved the curriculum, the 28-hour curriculum that has been approved, that is being pushed out to the county security chiefs. The county security chief is able to take that curriculum, and that's the minimum requirement, and they can augment it, add additional hours, add additional topics as they see fit for their area. But the statute is very clear that the county security chief is charged with lifting that up in their area. Now, there are some rural districts where they may not be able to, just because of resource allocation and things like that, they may not be able to do it themselves. Statute does allow them to collaborate with adjoining counties and be able to facilitate a joint training program at that time. So that's going to be really up to the county security chiefs. But as far as LEAs reaching out, or the county security chiefs reaching out, if you haven't met your county security chief, you don't know who they are, please send me an email, and I can attach my email here, so that we can help facilitate that conversation. I'll put my email here in just a minute.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rhett, this is going to be for you. I'm going to group about 3 or 4 of these into one. Folks are asking about list of state approved vendors, um, general for the security bill as in general, specifics for armed guardians, specific for security film. Is there things you could share about state contracted vendors, Rhett?
Yeah, absolutely. So please reach out to state contracts to see what is already um, an approved vendor. However, you'll notice in House Bill 40, it talks about an association. That association together will be able to work towards creating state cooperative contracts to ensure competitive pricing and ensure, which would in return ensure better pricing for LEAs. I know that some of the concerns from last year's $72 million school safety and support grant is some of those concerns were that as you go to start implementing after you receive the quotes, the costs are significantly higher. And so that's what I hope that we can see in the future of these statewide cooperative contracts. However, as you look to implement current initiatives with funding that you might already have, please reach out and look at what's already an approved vendor with state purchasing. Great question.
Awesome, thank you. And then for clarification, you mentioned House Bill 40. That's of the 2025 session, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to go ahead and put the link in the chat to that legislation. I'll go grab that real quick.
Awesome, thank you. Scott, are there any updates on mental health assessments and available resources, including where they can be done and by who?
Currently there are no updates. So, but I should say that the original advice of tapping into the network of professionals that are currently providing them to law enforcement is the recommendation. And there are some specific groups throughout our state that I think do more than others. I don't know if we can give them a plug or not. But for those who are looking for options in their area, I would say connect to your local law enforcement, including the security chiefs that work with DPS, and Jeremy's team should be able to be the best one to connect you with those. And I'm always willing to take an email or two and work with people specifically on those. So if you need to email me, feel free, because I would love to work through that. Again, it's still a network of professionals that are being built in our state. I think a year or two from now, it'll be much more robust.
Awesome, thank you. Jeremy, a few questions in one. Are there requirements coming out regarding the security film specs? Thickness, inside, outside?
Just looking at Justin's comment in the chat as well. So we are not in a position to be pricing out information on that. And I know that a lot of individuals are looking at the grant right now and they're looking at submitting that stuff. I am going to advise, understand what the administrative rule states with the timeline of implementation. Security film is one of those that is a 10-year timeline implementation program. If your school does not have locking doors that are up to speed, focus on the locks. If you do not have bleeding control kits in every classroom, get bleeding control kits in every classroom. The window film and thickness is still under advisement with the administrative rule, and so we're working on that now. What is currently in the administrative rule will be changing for the window thickness and things like that. I am not going to speak to specific vendors that are adhering to what the transition may be, as this is not the space for that, and I'm not in a position to talk about funding for that either. But I will say, look at what that timeline of implementation is in the administrative rule and see what those most emergent needs are moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would like to remind folks, if you have questions, to use the Q&A feature instead of the chat. We do want to make sure we're keeping track of everything that's getting answered. A lot of uh, these questions that still remain are regarding the school safety and support grant. So feel free to either email our inbox, and we do have that live Q&A next Tuesday at 8:30. However, I do want to open it up here. Sandra says, is anyone else getting calls from the media wanting details about needs assessment results and specifics about guardian plans? We have not agreed to talk about this, just wondering how others are responding to the media. Yes, so Lieutenant Barnes, you might want to chime in quickly about sharing results of the school safety needs assessment and identity of the guardian with other folks. But because we value community here, I guess we all have our directors here in the same space. To answer Sandra's question, is anyone else getting those media requests, or how are you handling those items or emails coming in? But Lieutenant Barnes, I'll hand it over to you first.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra, for bringing that up. Statutes are very clear. Information about the needs assessment cannot be shared. Class B misdemeanor is a potential situation there. Also, there is a situation with the guardians where if the identity of the guardian is given outside of individuals that essentially have a need to know. So your school safety and security specialist, your school resource officer, your local law enforcement, county security chief, state security chief, school administrators, things like that. If the identity of the guardian is being released based outside of those individuals, it's also a Class B misdemeanor. So there are criminal penalties for sharing this information. We ran into a situation well, I guess not even a year ago, where the media did reach out and try to get specific information on what money from the school safety grant was being utilized for. Let me just say that if you are giving information of your gaps to the media and they report on that, then any targeted violent attacker who is going through research and going through a planning process on how they can carry out a targeted violent attack. Now they know they have a playbook. They know where those gaps are. They know where they need to focus and hit. So no, the information from the needs assessment should not be shared. And sharing of that information would be a Class B misdemeanor.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. I do see some folks are using the chat of how they are responding to the media as well. That's another great way to have conversations here today. Um, it is 11:58. We'll do one more before we wrap up and jump off today. Um, where can we access the updated rules written by Chief Pennington? My understanding is that the rules include the timelines for implementation. Lieutenant Barnes?
Attach those to the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Rhett, I'm going to turn it over to you today. Thanks so much all for being here, and Rhett will share our last minute announcements.
Thank you, Ashley. And again, thank you, directors, for your support and school safety initiatives across the state. We try to continue to support you by offering these webinars and trainings. Please reach out to us for any additional support that you need. We understand the timing of the grant and also waiting for additional clarity on some of these school safety requirements can be challenging. We just ask you to write to the best that you can in your grant application to the need that you have so that we can continue to communicate that with policymakers as far as the financial need, as well as continue to reach out and speak to your school safety and security specialists. Keep that communication chain happening between the directors and the school safety and security specialist and that county security chief, and continue to support one another. Again, thank you for your time today. If you have additional grant questions, we will have that webinar next week, and we hope you all have a good rest of your day, and thank you for all that you do to support students. Thank you.